Hey everybody, welcome to Tuesday. Momo is in my lap. He's good and comfy. So if his head pops up or you see me looking down or something, that's why. Momo in the house. Well, in the lap. This is shot in my house. Anyway, yesterday's video was, not the most positive. So I wanted to do a follow-up where I think things actually are getting better and talk about the things I have seen grow and improve and actually, evolve for the better in gaming. Because there's a lot. That's the thing. We have all these culture clashes. And if you read, the press, it all seems no good, terrible, very bad because news is negatively weighted, right? In part because these sites want you to pay them to cover you positively. Just a true fact. There's a lot of pay-go and a lot of it's not technically grift, but if you want positive coverage for your artistic projects now, they're like, that's great, give me $300. And that's not just games, that's your music video, your web series. It's all just pay to play now, predominantly. It sucks. But ad rates went in the toilet 2014, 2015, actually even before that with the first YouTube apocalypse. So, that's just the reality of the business. But gaming has this really cool phenomenon that you can build community. And that is the thing I have seen and I have observed that I think has been a really meaningful, positive thing that is going to see us through and is what's responsible to me for the legitimate evolutions for the better in the gaming space. We know how bad things are at AAA or have been in recent history at AAA studios. I mean, you guys know I was just sitting there because when I tried to talk about it, nobody would listen to me. Nobody wanted to hear that, their favorite studios and EA were treating people like shit. But anybody that had to interact with these places knew that. And it wasn't across the board, right? That's the thing I think that people don't recognize about some of these scandals is that it all really depended on what piece of these absolutely massive companies you were working for in terms of like the really bad direct harassment. Other things like a lack of job security, not great pay, really ridiculous, invasive NDAs. That is more of an industry-wide thing. That's going to take some time to shake out. I do think the state of California getting involved with Activision Blizzard may help things there. The big problem in terms of market forces is that game companies were already pulling out of the California area to move into right to work states like Texas, like Florida, in part because of the more pro-business labor laws or lack thereof in those states. I won't belabor it. Despite that, you are seeing more and more and more women and minorities and women who are minorities or people of color. I know there are some people that don't like that. You are seeing more of some backgrounds showing up more and more in game design, and that's fantastic. I'm seeing a lot more women actively participating in the college courses I teach at. And that's very exciting because they're being, trained. So hopefully they'll be able to get jobs. I say hopefully because it's no guarantees. There are still major barriers to hiring for people who aren't connected to existing pipeline channels. I use that term very, very carefully because it's not necessarily about, oh, she's a woman or she's Black or she's Hispanic or anything like that. It's, do you know someone on the inside that, one, can keep an eye out for jobs, two, will vouch for you, three, will give you a heads up on what the corporate culture is like, what they're looking for, so on and so forth. That's the structural problem with getting more different types of people with good ideas into video games. It's that people are tribal beasts, no matter how much sensitivity training you put them through. Whether they realize it or not, they tend to hire people they like, and people tend to like people they feel are like them, right? And it is a feeling, it's not a thought. You can understand why somebody who is, say, very left-leaning politically would not want somebody coming into the office who was super, super vocal about conservative politics, right? Now, I think you should be able to go to work and avoid that to a certain extent, right? There used to be a time where people knew there were certain things you just left at the door, but things are so acrimonious now. I think we all sort of recognize that you have to go to work and be comfortable. And people are comfortable around people that seem to share their values. Now, what happens at companies where the higher ups have values that are kind of shitty? Well, they keep hiring people with similar values, and, those are kind of shitty. There's no easy fix to that problem other than competition, other than the barriers to entry being low enough in an industry that people can start a business and create a product that people can gain access to, and it can spread, that other people can start things up, try to do things differently, and create some competition and innovation in the space. Now, for a really long time, it was just prohibitively expensive to make a video game that anybody could get their hands on. That's why a lot of those little mid-tier studios like BioWare got acquired by EA. Making a game that sold 1 million copies was just not viable anymore. They needed to be up around, at the time, it was the 3 to 5 million mark. That's the thing a lot of people don't understand about all those EA acquisitions. Like, yes, EA ruined studios. The unfortunate truth is it's very possible those studios would have gone under anyway because people were still buying box copies of games in stores. We didn't have the thriving downloadable marketplace like we do now. And those stores are really, really important because, something like, what is it, Danganronpa? I can't even say the name of it. The only reason I know about that game is people recommended it to me, and it looks like it's super my jam. I never would have touched a Yakuza game if people hadn't word of mouthed it, right? Good games can succeed because of structural positive things that are happening in the industry. And that's super important. I was trying to think of another one that people recommended. Look at the whole Last of Us 2 Ghost of Tsushima thing. There was so much more marketing poured into The Last of Us 2. And I can't tell if it's just because Ghost of Tsushima was a much cheaper game to make because they stayed in scope and on budget reasonably, and Last of Us 2 didn't. or whether Sony is just throwing a ton of money at that IP because there's an HBO series in development. I don't know which, but it was a David and Goliath thing. You saw all the extra hype, all the extra marketing that went into The Last of Us 2 versus Ghost of Tsushima that came out without a ton of fanfare only a month later. I mean, there was some marketing, but it wasn't near the scale, right? But if you've been tracking sales of Ghost of Tsushima, like that game had a fan base behind it, myself included, who just evangelized for it. Like, no, this game is good. People heard about it. People bought it. And it's just chugging away, right? We know there's going to be a sequel. Awesome. Well-deserved. Didn't get rewarded by the awards show circuit. A lot of good games don't. But that doesn't matter because people can find the game and people talk about the games they like, and we have the tools to communicate with each other so that community and word of mouth advertising can work. Now that's really important for small developers like me who tried to go the route of work for other people, get some experience, build up your profile. There's just too much. I don't want to use a supercharged word, but that insisting on working with people exactly like you problem is a real issue in games. And that, I'm trying not to drop trigger words, right? But I put a thing up on Twitter about the whole Ketanji Brown Jackson thing. And I said that, racism is the weapon being used against her. It's not the motive. The motive is she's a Joe Biden nominee, right? All the Senate Democrats are going to vote for her. Most of the Senate Republicans, if not all, are going to vote against her. It's just the way things work right now. The Republicans are pulling anything they think will work against her. It is the same way in many aspects of game dev, that if somebody comes in with what you think people would want, innovative ideas passionately argued, obviously knowing when to quit, but all the stuff they say you're supposed to do, lean in, negotiate, advocate for your position, all that stuff. There's just too many ways to weaponize stereotypes against everybody in the business. And I'm deliberately not saying women or people of color or Hispanics or white guys, because the way that works is, if you've got a company run by, say, a Hispanic woman, a white guy might be the one on the wrong end of a weaponized stereotype. The reality in game dev is the companies tend to be run by white guys. And so that everybody else tends to have an uphill battle. Because if we're going to be completely blunt, people skills and an openness to feedback is not a requirement to make a game on your own, right? And so many of these companies are like, they made a game, it did well, and then, oh my God, they have to make another game. Just because somebody's a great coder doesn't mean they're a great manager, right? It doesn't mean they have that skill of people. It doesn't mean they have that wisdom. And so it's not necessarily the fault of the guy, usually guy, running a studio who ends up discriminating against somebody. The fatigue is very real. The stress is very real. People end up not at their best. And so you do hit a point where if you do want to do anything different, you have to go, well, fuck it, I'm just going to make it. And people may like it. People may not like it. It's actually easier to do that now in games if you have the skills and the talent than it even is for film or web series. Why? Because of those stores. Because unlike a web series that you put up on YouTube or an independent film that you can make but can't get distributed, right? You're not relying on YouTube's advertising algorithm. You're not relying on applying to festivals. You make a game, you put it on the Steam store or GOG or what do they call it, itch.io or anything like that. You put it out there. You let people know. If it looks good, they pay for it. It's a direct flow of revenue from the consumer. Thanks, Momo. From the player, the consumer, to the company making the game. And yeah, Steam and whatever takes a cut. The Epic Game Store takes a cut, so on and so forth. The iTunes Store and Android and all that, they take a cut. But it's not the same indirect, oh, you have to, get a bazillion views to make any money at all on YouTube, right? Or you have to join an MCN, or you have to go around and chase advertisers or do Patreon. I don't even remember if I threw to that this time. But you don't have to do that. Like, yeah, you have to pay to get it ESRB rated. Yeah, you have to go through all the listing on the Steam store. But there's a direct pipeline to a market that doesn't exist in other forms of media. That's why everybody's salivating to get Netflix and Amazon and, those streaming service deals. Because they're the only ones that'll really work with, relatively inexperienced content creators in the linear space. And even then, not in Canada. Holy shit, is that buttoned up tight. And that's the other thing. Gaming is truly a global industry. And so that means that, there are not the same universal crushing hegemonic heuristics. I know that was a lot of, I'm trying not to use the word stereotype. It is not the same culturally agreed upon shorthands throughout gaming the way it is in, say, Western media, right? People can get Japanese games, and I guess, anime is great for that too, with services like Crunchyroll. But again, anime is taking off because there are distribution models in the West, right? It is all about being able to get people to sample your product. And gaming does a lot of things that aren't great, but almost by accident, it got that right. Now, part of that is the sharing economy in games, that people just want other people to like the stuff they like, and so they will buy games for people. They will do what you guys do and directly support me with coffee and Patreon and all that stuff. There is a culture of doing that in games that isn't necessarily replicated. It costs so much money to get donations to like a film festival, to get advertisers. How does it cost money to get a donation? Well, you have to market, you have to schmooze, you have to do events. There's costs to all of that stuff that are much, much smaller in gaming. It's the only way I've been able to do the stuff I've done. These are really real positives. And that is not because of any company. That is not because of any activist. That is not because anybody was forced to do anything. That is because of the heart and soul of the gaming community. And I would argue the identity of being a gamer, which I believe is very, very real. I'll spare my extended gaming thing, but because what is at the core of being a gamer? You play games, right? and not do 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 kid playing dolls, right? You're an adult that plays games. You play pretend, right? You believe in play. You believe in feeding the human spirit in that way. You understand the value of that. Um, you're not insisting everything has to be work. You know, you're not pulling the Joe Rogan thing. Games are a waste of time. I was so lazy. Like, dude, it sounds like you were kind of depressed back then, and that's why you didn't do anything but play video games. It wasn't, motivated people don't play video games all day. People who are trying to get away from life play video games all day. It's inverting cause and effect. Gamers recognize the importance of feeding the spirit that way. And we don't have the snooty Oscars or Emmys or groundbreaking television things. We have AAA games, but we don't, that's not the same as the highfalutin premium cable art house flick. Oh, these are important films kind of thing. Is it fun? And I think that's why people are so giving. That's why people are so willing to champion small, imperfect, modestly budgeted projects. I mean, like the original Witcher game. That game's rough by, even the standards of the time, but something about it just connected with people and they were able to get better and better. And then they seem to forget everything they learned on The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk. I don't get it, but hey, it worked. We got The Witcher 3. That's the achievement, right? Fabulous game. True AAA game. Fabulous game. And that only happened because it, started small and worked up. You can do that in games in a way that you can't as anywhere near as easily, anywhere near as achievably in film or television. Trust me, I've worked in all these industries. There's a reason I keep coming back here, right? And I think that's something that the industry side, the AAA studios, should be realizing is a strength, and actually go out and recruit some people with interesting ideas. Don't wait for them to submit an application, because there are a whole bunch of different reasons why they won't. And it's not that they're not interested. They may not know how to find the jobs. They may not know how to properly tailor their resume. The whole process can just seem so intimidating that good people are missing out, because there is a gap between the schools and, well, not the really good schools in California that, game companies go in there and scout talent at everywhere else, right? I mean, game design students where I teach, they have to make a game and they're down at fucking PAX, or they're down at the indie showcase at E3, because Canada just doesn't support them. They have to go to the US, but at least they can. It's way more expensive for them to do it than, somebody who goes to school or lives in California, but it's doable, right? That door is there. It just might cost some money to get through, as opposed to, say, Netflix Canada, who won't work with anybody who doesn't have a select number of literary agents. That's the only people Netflix Canada, last time I checked, will work with. So prose authors, people with a literary agent. I mean, not somebody with an IP. No, you have to have a book. Shows you what they're looking for, right? They are leaving people behind deliberately, structurally. And gaming doesn't do that. And for all the crap, all the mess, and I do think that some of the volume, some of the noise is also because of that play and sharing mentality. Because it's misunderstood. And people, when you're willing to be silly, I talked about this yesterday. If you're willing to be silly, that's a vulnerable place. When you're willing to admit, yeah, I'm not doing this for any personal gain, I'm just doing it because it's fun, people can make you feel quite small. So people feel small, and then they're basically told, oh, by the way, you're a terrible person that's ruining the world for everybody else. That feels bad, right? We can do better with that messaging and get where we want to go. But I do think that what is working in games is ultimately going to get us past some really, really ugly counterproductive stuff that's not working. I wouldn't be, doing what I'm doing if I didn't believe that. So hopefully that's a bit of positives. It were shorter, much shorter than the video yesterday, but still full content. So I'm interested in what you guys think. What's your favorite parts of gaming? What do you think our strengths are? Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Monthly support, patreon.com/Leanna K, super helpful. And Leanna Care sessions for people who really need them but can't afford them, coffee.com/Leanna K. Wellness Wednesday tomorrow, the thing that spawned Leanna Cares. Thanks for watching.